Welcome in, everyone. This is the Big Z Breakdown. I am the one and only Mike Zanetti, and football is back. I mean, you could eat, breathe, smell it once again. First week of preseason. Everyone gets to see their favorite squad back in action. A lot of rookies that played pretty well, we'll talk about. And the topic of the hour, fantasy football season is rapidly approaching. Some drafts in the next few weeks. We're going to go through some players that could break out. Now that we've seen some preseason, we've seen some starters, we've seen kind of what some offenses are going to look like. I've now got my pretty good rankings as to what we're going to look forward to. And this is going to be an hour-long kind of show where I'm going to try and go through everything from, like I said, preseason updates. You got injuries as well as your top 5 running back sleepers. You got your wide receivers. You got your must drafts. So stick around for that and let me know anything you want to see in the comments. Hopefully it was quick enough, but right to the action in injuries. They're a part of the sport, but this one was similar to the Damar Hamlin situation. Morris Norris, very unfortunate injury, went for a low tackle and just went out cold immediately. The players gathered around, supported him, again, said a nice prayer, and that's what you want to see in this sport is the players gathering around and just supporting one another. It's a competitive sport. People are fighting for roster spots, and the last thing you want to see is an injury like this. So they all gathered around, they ended the game, and that was probably the right thing to do. I mean, you were so worried about this player who was transported to the hospital and now he's been unconscious. He has been secure, so that's the good news there. He's in stable condition, actually already out of the hospital, back at the Lions facility, so he's in good words. And I mean, the fact that it's not as serious as it was, he's in concussion protocol, best case scenario for him. So that's awesome to hear. Some other injuries, this wasn't in preseason, but Landon Dickerson was carted off the field. They said it might be a meniscus injury. We'll have further clarification later, but that's not good for the Eagles offensive line. This story right here, Rondale Moore getting carted off. The guy who tried to go out with the Falcons last year had another tendon issue. Pretty sure it was Achilles, but you might have to fact check me on that. I don't know if it was ACL or Achilles, but he did one of the two on the Falcons. Battled back all offseason and then carted off. Again, gets rolled up on. I'm pretty sure it was a kickoff return, and that is just terrible news. I mean, it's such a gifty, shifty player that I personally loved out of the draft, and again, we're just not going to get to see him on the field. He had an opportunity to prove himself on the Vikings. Very unfortunate news. Anthony Richardson dislocated his pinky. Think he'll be back. That should be a quarterback competition between Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson. Interesting to see how that turns out. Rachaad White, I'm pretty sure it was a groin injury, but he played in the preseason game, which pretty much tells you Bucky Irving has solidified that number one job. But Rachaad White was more of a third down back last year. And reason we're bringing all these up is the fact that it's fantasy football season, right? If you see a guy go down like Tyjae Spears, who's coming up next, or Rachaad White, that brings so much more value to the other players. If Tyjae Spears is out long term, he's not, but he's got an ankle injury. And looking at Tyjae Spears, well, Tony Pollard could have the starting job if Spears misses out for the first few weeks. Could draft Pollard, trade him. There's some value there. This is a tough one. Alexander Madison may not have any fantasy relative value, but a guy who's out for the season. He's going to have neck surgery, and it's just unfortunate. He was a great player for the Raiders last year, went to the Dolphins' backfield looking for a spot, and he gets hurt. So unfortunate there. Now we'll get into the quarterbacks. You have pretty much a lot of rookies, and that's pretty much all we're going to go through. I'll even rank the best performance to the worst performance in terms of the quarterbacks that I liked. But there was all good and bad from everyone. There was a collective group. But we'll start with Shedeur Sanders, kind of the buzz of the afternoon, if you would. Shedeur, all I heard after Friday night was Shedeur this, Shedeur that. I don't even remember when the game was because there was so much preseason on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But regardless, when Shedeur played, he played pretty well. I will say that the one touchdown that he had he had 2 passing touchdowns. The one touchdown pass, it was off a muff punt, so I'm not going to count that as a touchdown scoring drive. But he did lead 2 touchdown drives. Pretty solid, and the 2 touchdown passes he had were very accurate, and he picked apart the defense. I mean, he was pinpoint in those throws. And again, he didn't have all of best throws, but the thing that I love about Shedeur Sanders is he is embracing the underrated card, right? He was drafted in the fifth round, sixth round, that area. That's where you made to prove yourself. And you could have so many other players saying, oh, I could have been drafted higher. You could be complaining. And all of the other players that I've seen do that, in the Josh Rosens that said there were 9 mistakes ahead of me, the Desmond Ritter saying, oh, I'm going to win Atlanta a Super Bowl one year when he was drafted later in the rounds as well. And now Shedeur Sanders being interviewed after his first NFL debut. And the reporter who was saying she was gassing him up. She was saying, oh, Shedeur, you played incredible tonight. How'd you do it? And I was just like, he didn't play that flashy. I mean, he did his job. He had some good throws, but he had a couple things to improve on. And I think he knocked himself a little more than he did. But the humble, the hard on yourself mentality, that's what you love from these quarterbacks. At least I do. And Shedeur being able to say, yeah, I didn't play my best. Sorry, Pops. I wish I did a little bit better, just trying to make the most of my opportunity. Players like that is what you want to see. So Shedeur made the most of his opportunities. I think he's earned a chance to get with the first team reps, especially with other injuries to Dylan Gabriel and Kenny Pickett. It looks like Shedeur is beating out Gabriel for the third or whatever spot on that roster. There's so many quarterbacks, but I think Shedeur earned himself a step up in the right direction. And again, he didn't have all the best throws. He missed a couple. He ran around for his life and got sacked, took a bad sack, almost knocked him. Pretty sure it might have knocked him out of field goal range. But my point here is he played well enough to earn himself another step. He missed a couple throws, but he made a couple great throws. And that's what it is in the NFL. You're going to have a bad read where you throw a pick six like Tyler Shuck did, who we'll get to in a second. But I mean, that's all you really need to hear from Shedeur Sanders. Let me know your thoughts, but I think covered it pretty well. Again, not perfect, but he did some good and he did some bad. But he stepped up when he had to. He threw the touchdowns, and I'm gonna say overall it was good. Moving on to Mr. Jackson Dart, who I think played slightly better than Shedeur, but it was kind of similar to where, some of the screen passes, most of his kind of yards came on some screen passes, but I'm not going to really look at that. I'm going to look at how he threw the ball. And he had some zip on that thing, and that's the thing. He has a little bit more arm talent than Shedeur Sanders. I mean, he was drafted in the first round for a reason. You kind of expect these things, but he's a project, right? In the Lane Kiffin system, you're kind of questioning, can he translate to the NFL? I think the Giants are doing something special here. You put him behind Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. He can compete for that number 2 spot. You're going to have him on the roster. You don't need to thrust him in the play right away. I mean, that's kind of how Josh Rosen lost his job on the Cardinals. Not to say it's going to happen with Dart, but he had a great passing touchdown that was a beautiful ball placement. The fact that it was one-on-one coverage, he picked up on that. He seems to be adapting to the game very well. It's going to take him a second to get some chemistry with these receivers, get the playbook, get the defensive reads down, and use his legs to his ability too, because he is a good athlete. But I thought Dart overall played pretty well, had some good passes, had some bad passes. But I'm going to say it's close between Shedeur and Dart in terms of how they both played. But we'll rank him in just a second. Cam Ward, solid day. Really didn't do too much, but on the 2 drives that he had, one went 3 and out. The second drive, though, pretty good. A couple good chunk plays. Ended the drive with a touchdown drive, so that's always good. But Calvin Ridley and him look like they could be a good pair this year. Calvin Ridley for fantasy, I don't know. Watch out. I'd like that one. And finally, Tyler Shuck, who made one bad mistake, threw a ball to the outside, and bink, pick 6. So that's definitely not good. But he did have a touchdown pass. He was wide open, but he did a couple things good, couple things pretty bad. But again, it's the Saints offense. You got to give him the benefit of the doubt. It's a tough Chargers defense you're going against. But I think he proved himself to be the number 2 behind Rattler, and Spencer Rattler didn't really play that great with the second teamers either. So realistically, looking at how everybody played, I'm going to say Cam Ward kind of proved why he's the number 1 pick. But then second, it'd kind of be close between Jackson Dart, Shedeur Sanders, and then I think Tyler Shuck kind of is on that last tier. All right, let's take a quick break. I'm going to take probably about a half a second here because this is edited, but I got to take a drink of water. All right, we're back. That's your preseason recap, but after that, I feel like it's only going to be right for us to get into some opinionated stuff here with some fantasy football. Why not? You might as well. And I think this draft strategy is going to go a long way. You got your robust RB where you load up on running backs in the early rounds, your hero RB, your zero RB. But I think this one's gonna be really smart. I am waiting on a quarterback, and when I say waiting, I'm waiting till like the 10th or more rounds to be drafting a quarterback. You do not need a Josh Allen, a Lamar Jackson, a anybody, Joe Burrow especially. I mean, this is a year where quarterback is not necessarily the most needed position. The reason why is there are so many new and improved offenses that have so much potential. Yes, the key word there is potential because you don't want to bank on upside that's not there. But these quarterbacks have proved it in the past. And the first guy, Trevor Lawrence. Lawrence looked pretty good last year. I mean, again, he's inconsistent. But the thing is here, the value is insane. Quarterback number 18. That's insane. Quarterback number 18. Right behind him, CJ Stroud. I don't know how CJ Stroud's ranked behind Trevor Lawrence, but this is a guy who is an MVP candidate. I do not care what anybody says. All the hype for Houston last year, the number 5 quarterback taken last year, and now all of a sudden, he drops to number 19? What happened? What did he do wrong? His receivers got hurt. He was throwing at John Mechie, Xavier Hutchinson, Dalton Schultz, who didn't really have the best season. Nico Collins was hurt for a little while, too. You load up on Jaden Higgins. You go out and get Christian Kirk. And you're telling me this guy's not a top 5, top 10 fantasy quarterback? This is an absolute steal in the later rounds. And I have no problem with CJ Stroud as my number 1 starter. The only problem, lack of mobility. But we've seen pocket passing quarterbacks get up there before. I mean, not to say Baker's a pocket passing guy, but Baker Mayfield going as the quarterback 7 this year. He was somebody going into late teens last year. So if you could get your sleeper quarterback for immense value, and this is the thing with late round quarterbacks, you have so many other better positions available. Running back, wide receiver. Load up on about 5, 6, 7, 8 wide receivers and wide receiver and running backs early. And you don't need to take a tight end until later either. Tight ends, there's not a lot of good tight ends. I mean, Brock Bowers, yeah, sure. But again, the tight end 1 curse. It's so weird. But every year, the tight end 1 falls off just like the running back 1. It is so weird. But Brock Bowers, you have Sam Laporta last year. The 1, he fell off. Travis Kelce the year before, he was off a cliff. And now, I'll even say Dak Prescott. This is the minimum. Number 10. But I'm taking Dak Prescott as to be my starting quarterback. Even if it's round 7, 8, this is a guy who's going to be top 5. Every other season, he's been injured, had a fully healthy season, MVP candidate. And now, you're telling me that's an improved receiving core with CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens? Oh, count me all in. I want all of Dak Prescott. Bryce Young, quarterback 22. He had a great end the last season. An amazing end. Somebody who was considered to be a bust. His career was over last year. And then he just turned the wheels, turned everything around. As soon as they benched him for Andy Dalton, he said, all right, I got to figure out how to play or my career's in jeopardy. So he picked it up. And guess what the Panthers did? They went out and they got a weapon. Tedrow and McMillan. Those two are going to be a dynamic duo. And the run game's even better too. Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle. That is a nice pack. That is a nice duo. So that's a nice thing that I am looking forward to. And as far as other quarterbacks, Jordan Love. I mean, I know he got hurt last year. But if this guy's healthy, quarterback 17... pair him with Matthew Golden, their new first-round pick. Are you kidding me? What is with these values? Not to mention, we'll talk about Golden in a little bit, but Matthew Golden going as the wide receiver, what is that, 54? There's 54 receivers that are ahead of Matthew Golden? I mean, it was the same thing last year with Ladd McConkey, Brian Thomas Jr., and Ladd was a second-round pick. Brian Thomas was picked around the same range as Golden. So why is he? I understand that there's so many wide receivers on Green Bay, but Jalen Reed is hurt. Christian Watson is hurt. Who's going to catch the ball? Dontavian Wicks? Like, seriously, I don't know what's going on there, but Matthew Golden is an absolute stud, league winner. And as far as tight end, you don't need to draft the tight end early either. Wait on tight end, wait on quarterback. Tyler Warren, the new rookie. I know there's not a good quarterback there, but he is the only target that is big, can go over the middle, and catch about 5 for 80 a game. That's all you need out of a tight end is 10 consistent points week in, week out. It's hard to find a tight end that's going to catch 5 for 50 a game, and that's Tyler Warren. I mean, all the rookies, Brock Bowers, Sam Laporta. There's always guys that come through, and Warren is going to be utilized. He was drafted early. Love Warren. But my point here is you can wait on quarterback and tight end. There are so many quarterbacks and tight ends later in the drafts, and that'll lead us to our next topic. But as for quarterbacks, just to finish this off, wait on quarterback, wait on tight end. You go draft your Ashton Genties, your Matthew Goldens. You're in the middle of the rounds. Go get a Kyron Williams, Tedero McMillan, DK Metcalf. All of these guys you load up on early, especially running back, because there's a limited amount of them, and it's the most injured position. You will dominate this year. I'm telling you, get one of the quarterbacks that I just laid out on the chart. It's going to be an incredible season. All right, moving on to running back. And this is going to be a very difficult take because you see the picture and you see the title. But Saquon Barkley is a very scary pick for me this year. I know that might sound like the dumbest thing I've ever said in my life. Mike, what are you saying? Saquon just had a 2,000-yard season. I understand that, but that makes me even more scared to draft him because if you look at his career, he almost doubled his career yards in a single year. He was at 5,000. He just got 2,000 one year with the Eagles. No offense, these kinds of seasons are rare. They do not ever happen back to back. How is he going to replicate that season? 345 carries for 2,000 yards. I'm not going to touch it. And even Bijan, Jahmyr Gibbs, all of those guys, they have competition too. I know Algier hasn't gotten much work, but they're still there. They still gotten touches. David Montgomery's still right there. I'm honestly out on all of the early running backs. Not because they're going to get injured. You can't predict injury. Injury is a part of the sport. But to be safer rather than sorry, I don't care. I'm taking Jamar Chase. I don't care. I'll take Ashton Genty, who's a rookie this year and has no competition. And yes, Genty could get hurt, but he's a fresh guy coming into the league, and he's got something to prove. He's got a chip on his shoulder. Barkley, 27, coming off the season of his career, talking about in the offseason how, yeah, I might be like a Barry Sanders guy where I might retire by the age of 30. That just sounds like and then all of this stuff with the Madden curse and then now Offensive Player of the Year I'm sorry, but sometimes fantasy is a curse, and I'm not going to be that guy that says Saquon's done because he's a very good player, and he may very well play in about 10, 12 games, and he might rush for about 1,200 yards, but is that a guy that you want to take with your first-round pick? I wouldn't. I'm not saying it's going to be a bad year for Barkley, but it's definitely not going to be a 2,000-yard season. People draft so many players because they expect them to have the number that they had last year. It is almost impossible for people to live up to what they've done. Jonathan Taylor, years ago, was a first-round pick, had an 1,800-yard season, couldn't live up to it. Cooper Kupp, Triple Crown year, never even got close ever after that. It's not a outlier stat either. Every year you have players that perform so well, and then they just don't match that number. If he gets close to 2,000 yards, I'll shut my mouth. If he finishes a top 5 running back, sure, he's a safe pick in your eyes. But I am very not sold on Saquon Barkley. I'm sorry, but if you're looking at other guys, Landon Dickerson also injured. We don't know how long he's going to be out for. That is a very key part of that offensive line. I know the offensive line is very good, but this is the thing. Running back in the first round is scary to draft. If you take Saquon, you better take Will Shipley later. You better take all of the other running backs that are going to succeed. Because that's just the beauty, I would say the ugliness of the sport, is that you cannot predict injury. If you draft Kyron Williams in the second round, you better get Blake Corum later. If you draft Bijan Robinson, you better get Tyler Algier. If you draft Jahmyr Gibbs, you might need to get David Montgomery. There is so much skepticism as to how do you win fantasy. Half of it's luck, but the other half is taking either your handcuff to your first-round running back or just staying away from the injury guys. I mean, you might as well have a better take. You might have a better risk on a guy like Ashton Genty, who is coming into the league fresh, or you might have a better risk on a guy like Christian McCaffrey, as stupid as that sounds. Christian McCaffrey, who's coming off an injury-prone season, is probably more inclined, and it's a risky pick, don't get me wrong, but McCaffrey has proven that he can be a top running back, and off a year where he just got hurt, where everyone is fading him, he's going to get hurt again, very possible, but because he's slipping to running back 7, I'd rather take him there than an RB1. And again, I feel like second round would be better value to take McCaffrey. But again, there's also no competition in that backfield. And there's nobody to catch the ball. Brandon Ayuk, who's hurt. Ricky Pearsall, Juwan Jennings, no. Saquon Barkley's got A.J. Brown. Dallas Goedert coming back healthy. I mean, yes, Saquon's going to be a main part of that offense. But is he going to have this season again? 2,000 yards, 5.8 yards a carry, 13 touchdowns, 345 rushes, 345 carries. Are you kidding? That is a lot of wear and tear. He's proven himself, that's for sure. But he already got the bag. I mean, what more has he got to prove? He's probably just playing for the team. And that's the thing. Now that he's 1 year in Philadelphia, everyone's got film on the team. Everyone's going to be looking, all right, how can we stop Saquon Barkley? If you can beat us in the past, you can beat us in the past. Everyone's going to say, we have to stop this guy at all costs. Because look at these numbers. I just don't believe he can replicate it. So as much as I'm going to go on a tangent, yes, injuries happen. I'm not saying he's going to get hurt. But again, very high volume risk. Anybody who's got 300 plus carries, I may love them as a player. You know what? Perfect example. Kyron Williams. I love him as a player. Unbelievable talent. Great upside. Nobody to compete with in that backfield. Blake Corum's getting second team reps. But he had 300 plus carries last year. He had one of the best seasons of his career. If you draft him in the second round, which I may, I got to get Blake Corum. Because if Kyron goes down, you can't rely on one player to win you your fantasy leagues. And that's what everybody tried to do last year with Christian McCaffrey. Everyone's like, oh, McCaffrey, all these reports in camp that he's fine, and then he didn't play week 1, and then he didn't play for 8 more weeks. You got to be smart here. If you want to win your league, you have to be smart. I'm not saying anything about this guy, Saquon, getting hurt. But the past history of 2,000 yard season, 345 carries, that's a lot of wear and tear in your body. Which meaning, even if he has 300 carries for 1,400 yards, that's not an RB1 finish. There's other running backs that I don't even know who the top running back is right now. McCaffrey could be in the running, but again, injuries are everywhere. I might just take a wide receiver first and then take a Aaron Jones or somebody later that I'm more confident in. Hey, there's so many rookies. J.K. Dobbins, R.J. Harvey, Caleb Johnson. There are so many good rookies later that you can get for so much better value rather than taking an RB1 and have to risk a terrible season because you took a guy like Bijan, a guy that you thought was going to be the workhorse, and then something unexpected happens, something terrible happens, and you need to have that next man up mentality. Fantasy is an ugly world, but you got to make the correct decision. I'm sorry I went on a little rant. I know I'm going to get a lot of flame for it, but try and understand this kind of perspective because it makes sense. Just saying. McCaffrey, again, this is a guy who can be the first pick. I'm not saying, we got to take a second here, but Christian McCaffrey can very easily be the number 1 pick this year. And you can argue it. I was thinking Genti, but I feel like that's a little bit of a reach. McCaffrey's a guy who you could literally see it on your screen. He's proven, even missing week 18, he is going to feast. I don't care how many times he's been injured. He even proved last year, fighting through an injury, that he can do it. Looking at his stats, I mean, this is a guy who even last year, in the 4 games that he played, 50 carries, 200 yards, 4 yards a carry, and he caught a lot of passes. I don't care if he's got a step that he's lost. I don't care about any of that. Deebo Samuel's gone. Nobody is on that team that can play anymore. So, yes, if I take McCaffrey for a first-round pick, it might look stupid to my method of, hey, you're taking a guy that you said you don't want to take injury. I understand what I'm saying. But you also have to understand he just got hurt. So a lot of people are going to be fading him. If Barkley just got hurt, a lot of people were last year. Barkley got hurt coming to the Eagles. I don't know. Barkley's injury prone. I don't know. And I was all over Barkley last year. That's the one thing I forgot to say. I was all over Saquon Barkley last year. All over him. And then when everybody, all of a sudden he has a 2,000 yard season. Oh, I got to draft Saquon Barkley. I don't know if that's where everyone's mindset is. But you got to keep in mind, he had just had a 2,000 yard season. The fact that he does that again, it's very shaky. McCaffrey, two great seasons back to back. 1,100 yards, 2022. Went to the Niners. First full season with the Niners. 1,400 yards. Kind of got hurt at the end of the 23 season. It went all into camp. Couldn't play. Couldn't get on the field. A tendonitis. It was a problem. But now he's back, and he's not even 30. He's 29. He still got it, man. It's Christian McCaffrey. I am making a case for myself to draft this guy. He's going to catch about 100 passes this year, and he's going to rush for about 800 yards. And maybe not a lot of touchdowns, but he's going to catch a lot of passes. And that's all you need to ask for from Christian McCaffrey. Guy is a monster. I mean, seriously. We've seen it. We know he can do it. 244 carries, 1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns. I'm not saying he's going to get 14, but he's definitely going to be up there with the running backs ones because he's going to catch the ball. Saquon only caught 30 balls last year. He's not necessarily a guy that's going to get checked down the ball a lot. Not to say it's a good or bad thing, but again, in order to be the RB1, in order to get the most potential out of a running back, you kind of got to look at every situation. Look at, is somebody coming off a pinnacle season? Are they off an injury? Everything matters because Breece Hall this year has a chip on his shoulder because it's in a contract year. And there are so many running backs that in the middle rounds can easily succeed, can easily be league winners, where I don't honestly trust any of the first-round running backs. I don't trust any of them. So I might just make this a one-part video. I was thinking about making it a avoid Saquon and then a draft McCaffrey. But honestly, I might just keep it as one because I don't know who to draft this year, man. The running backs, I always want to take a running back first, but I don't trust Bijan. As stupid as it sounds, I don't trust Bijan. I don't trust Gibbs. I don't trust Saquon. I don't trust Kyron. I don't trust any of them. I think there's so many other guys in better situations later in the rounds that why not? Why not pull the trigger? So second, third round, maybe I'll take running back. But there's just so many question marks across the league. Not only injuries, but situationals, bad offensive line. What is the system? And then half the league is in a committee. So it's so tough to have a good dominant running back. There's only 4 or 5 running backs that are not in a committee, named Jonathan Taylor, Ashton Genty, Josh Jacobs, Kyron Williams, maybe Caleb Johnson, maybe J.K. Dobbins, but probably the other one's Derrick Henry. So if you can secure one of those 5 running backs, and we'll talk about it after the sleepers. It'll be sleepers, then must drafts. But again, you have to look at all of the facts of the situational stuff that's going on here because JT mentioned him. He's not in a very good situation. His team's probably going to be losing 100-0 every game. So that's not a guy you might want to draft. But again, those are your guys in good situations. You have to find the guys for value, find the guys in good situations, find the guys that are going to get the volume. And it's all about volume for fantasy football. And I'm so sketchy of all the first-round running backs because, yes, they're great. But for how long? Can they be consistent? Can I count on them week in, week out? And if the answer is yes, go ahead and draft them. If the answer is no, but you still want to draft them, go ahead. Could lose. But you might want to get their handcuff, their backup running back, later in your drafts. All right, more fantasy. Next topic will be your top 5 sleepers. These are names that aren't necessarily drafting as your starters. Probably guys you're drafting as backups. Probably guys you're like, maybe they'll be good. We don't really know. But these are 5 guys that I'm confident are going to get the work. There's one name on here that is probably a little bit higher. Might not be considered a sleeper, but I love him. Great value. I would have him as a league winner. I love him. He would be in my wide receivers, but I felt like that would be too competitive. And the first guy, number 5, we're going to give you 5 names. First one's Javonte Williams. And I'll tell you why. First off, Jaden Blue got injured in camp, but that's not necessarily the point because Blue's going to be fine. He's going to be okay. But the point is, Javonte Williams, he's 25 years old. He's going as the RB 33. The 33rd running back. Cowboys gave him a 1-year deal. He's got to beat out Miles Sanders for the starting job. Shouldn't be too hard. But I'm not saying the Cowboys' run offense is going to be the best, but this is a guy you can get for immense value. Put him on your bench, and he might have to start a couple weeks because he's going to be a guy who's playing bad defenses, and he's going to get a couple rushing touchdowns. This could be a David Montgomery play to where he may not have like 100 yards on the ground, but he could have 15 carries for 45 yards and 2 touchdowns. Cowboys offense is a high-powered offense. I mean, I know Dak's going to throw it a lot, but on the goal line, they got to give it to somebody. This is your starter, and he is sitting so low for the right reasons. I mean, he's definitely maybe lost a step. He's got something to prove, though. He's on a one-year contract. The Broncos gave up on him. He wants to prove he can still play. We remember rookie Javonte Williams running over players. This is a guy who can still do that, and he doesn't have a very competitive running back room. They might have to go 1-2 punch, but realistically, Miles Sanders, Javonte Williams. Maybe Jaden Blue takes over at some point during the season. But right now it's Javonte Williams. And you're not going to convince me of any other name. So I like Javonte. He's number 5 because I don't know much about him. You know, I don't know if he's going to be the guy or if he's just going to be somebody who's a sleeper off your bench. But a very easy plug and play for week-to-week events, whether you have 2 running backs on a bye or whatever the case may be. You have, a good matchup where you got Javonte, you want to put him in at your flex. This is a guy who can be a potential starter for you if you go 0 RB. Maybe. Second guy, Quinshon Judkins. It's going to be a weird one for some people because they're going to be like, huh? A rookie? But let's look at where he's being drafted. Running back number 45. Running back 45? But Travion Henderson and everybody else, why are they so much higher? Amari Hampton. Everyone's forgetting about Judkins because of all the off-the-field issues. Yes, they're not very good, and right now the Browns are technically starting Jerome Ford, but Jerome Ford didn't play very great last year. And I think it's only a matter of time before he loses the job to Judkins. Judkins, 6 foot, we know what he could do at Ohio State. He ran the rock. He ran you over, or he move out the way. I mean, Judkins is a monster, and there is nobody really competing with him. I mean, you can argue that, this is going to be not his backfield, but I really don't believe that this is a backfield he's going to lose, right? So Jerome Ford is there. They also got Dylan Sampson for some reason. I don't know how many running backs they're going to use. But this is a guy who, again, you're not going to get him. You're going to get him for cheap. This is why they're sleepers, because they're going to sit on your bench and you're just going to stack them up. And hey, Judkins, maybe week 5, all right, you throw him into play. Last year, Chase Brown, a guy who was a similar spot, sat on your bench. Everyone's like, oh, Zach Moss. I was all over Chase Brown, and now everybody wants to draft him this year because he had a great season last year. Don't even get me started. I would love to draft Chase Brown in the 6th round. Now he's going in the 2nd. I don't want to draft him anymore. So Judkins is one of those players where maybe he's not your Chase Brown, but he's definitely not anyone. He doesn't have any kind of. He's bigger and he's So Chase Brown's got so much more loose. So they're definitely not the same, but similar situations as to how they could get thrusted into play because, they don't like what they see from their starter in Jerome Ford. So they think Judkins is better. He gets them goal line work. Boom. That's all you need is a little wiggle room, and boom, you're a starter in the NFL. You're taking over the league as a rookie. And when you're young, and when you're a rookie, and when you start to take over the game, that's dangerous for fantasy. Because all the value, all you need is 1 start, and he could just explode this season. So I love Quinshon off the bench. Number 3, it's going to be 2 players because you're going to be like, CJ Stroud, he's not really a sleeper. He's pretty well known. Well, going as the quarterback 18, he's actually going as the quarterback 19. He was listed as the quarterback 18 last year. But, I mean, if you look at the bottom right there, 2023, 15 games played, 4,100 yards. It's pretty good. I give him the benefit of the doubt. CJ Stroud had no wide receivers. He had Nico Collins, and then when he got hurt, nobody. When Diggs got hurt, definitely nobody. John Mechie, Xavier Hutchinson, nobody. Tank Dell went down, nobody was open. Jaden Higgins, Nico Collins, Christian Kirk, Jalen Noel, Justin Watson, Braxton Berrios, still John Mechie, who has actually been better in training camp. But if you're thinking, CJ Stroud's a pretty known name, how about somebody we don't know? This is Bryce Young for you. He may be pretty well known, but everyone's sleeping on him for some reason. I don't know why. Finished as the quarterback 20 last year, proved himself a lot, but now he's the quarterback 22. Looked really good in preseason, and I mean really good. That touchdown drive, whew. And maybe it's not Tedero McMillan who's getting the main targets. I think McMillan's nice. I think it's the stupidest thing in the world that they compared him to Johnny Manziel. That's just frightening. But anyway, sorry to all the Johnny football lovers. But for Bryce Young, he's in for a good season as well. I think if you honestly want to go with 3 quarterbacks and you draft C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, Geno Smith, Dak Prescott, 3 of those 4 guys, I'd be confident that they can play on a week-to-week basis. And depending on who's starting on what week and who's playing what defense, they have a good shot to be going far this year in terms of the outperforming your ADP. That's all what Sleepers is about. Guys going so late in drafts. As the quarterback 22, do you really think there's going to be 22 other fantasy-relevant quarterbacks than Bryce Young and CJ Stroud? I think that's ludicrous. I think both of these guys are going to be around the top 10. Maybe Bryce Young's at number 12 or number 11, but he's definitely not 22. Worst case scenario, maybe he has a mid-year, maybe he's number 15, maybe I was wrong. But I think he takes that next step this year. Not to say that he's an MVP level quarterback, but to say that he is actually a competitive, competent, top 15, top 20 quarterback in this league. So I think it's tough to say that there's 20 guys better than CJ Stroud and Bryce Young right now. That's what the rankings are. I understand there's running quarterbacks. Justin Fields is way above them. Baker Mayfield. I'm just considering why. And even Jordan Love, who's going as the quarterback 17, not all because he got hurt. Everyone's forgetting about him. He's pretty good. Just saying. Number 2, Braylon Allen. This is going to be a weird one. This is going to throw people off because you're like, that guy is the backup, right? Be wise with those words, my friend. The Jets are out on Breece Hall. They've given up on him. I know Braylon Allen took more of the snaps, but there's reports that they might trade Breece Hall mid-season. And for Braylon Allen to be on the bench, and we already know he's getting work in training camp, he's going to have a third down role. He's going to be your, chunk play guy. This is a player who's not only very talented, but he's a 4th-round pick. They believe in him. And Breece Hall, they're going to try and look to dish him middle of the season because they don't like him. I don't know why. I like Breece Hall a lot, but I think if Breece Hall goes to the Cowboys, that could be a crazy situation. So I like Breece, but it doesn't seem like the Jets are all in on him. So Braylon Allen is going to get more and more and more time. And if Breece Hall gets traded, oh boy, Braylon Allen to the moon. So I'm not saying that Breece Hall is going to get traded, but honestly, even if Breece doesn't get traded, I think it's going to be more of a Travis Etienne, Tank Bigsby split last year. It's going to be 50-50 with these two. And the Jets are more inclined to give Ashton Davis, I'm pretty sure is the other third down running back, and Braylon Allen both snaps together instead of Breece Hall. So this is a very interesting situation. I think Braylon Allen very arguably could be 3, but I think 2 is a good spot for him because, mid-season, if he's starting on the Jets, a guy who runs really hard, gets a lot of touches, could be a guy who's a sleeper that finishes near the top 10 in the running back compartment. And when there's already limited selections as there are this year, I'll take all of Breece Allen Breece Allen. This is what you guys got me doing. I'm doing this show late at night. All right. Last guy. Number 1. What more do I have to say? I've been talking about him all the show. Matthew Golden is going to be one of the more explosive players. We already see the 40 time. Santana Moss is a weird comparison. I love player profile, but man, that's crazy. 4.29 40. Wow. We saw him get 1 catch in preseason. Here's the thing. I don't think it's arguable, but right now, if we look, Braylon Allen was the 49th running back, but Matthew Golden is the 54th wide receiver. I'd like to give Golden maybe like a little bit of a Deebo Samuel comp. That 2021 year where he had 70 catches for 1,400 yards and 6 touchdowns. Golden might not be your touchdown guy. That might be your Christian Watson or your Jaden Reed. But right now, both of those guys are hurt. So maybe it's Tucker Kraft. I don't know. But this is going to be your chunk play guy. This is going to be your third down guy. This is going to be a guy Jordan Love is going to naturally adapt to early in the season. I think they're going to establish a very good relationship. And not only that, but Golden is their first round pick. The Packers never, ever, ever draft a wide receiver in the first round. This is a guy they trust. This is a guy they like a lot. And he's going to fly down the sidelines. I really do believe in Matthew Golden this year. Maybe he's not a sleeper, but as the wide receiver 54, a guy who could potentially finish top 10 as a wide receiver, not even kidding. Ladd McConkey, Brian Thomas Jr., all around the same range as Golden. Don't sleep. I'm telling you. I don't need to say much more. Matthew Golden, he might not have 1,400-yard numbers, but I'm expecting at least 1,000 yards, at least 50, 60, 70 catches, and 5 touchdowns. I think he can very easily become the guy. And if Jaden Reed and Christian Watson miss significant time, it's over. Golden is quick, shifty, can separate, great route runner, fast. My comp's Deebo Samuel. Love it. All right. That is your top 5 sleepers. Hopefully you guys enjoyed them. Hopefully we can figure out what else we can talk about for fantasy, because I feel like I'm running out of ideas. But let's just go down the list in positions. Let's go top 5 running backs that you must draft. And number 5, it's going to be a big name. Most of these guys are going to be big names because there's not many must-draft running backs for me. No offense. There's just not many guys that stand out from the bunch. Mainly because they go too early in the rounds. Jonathan Taylor, second-round pick. I'll take him in the second round. A lot of these guys, first, second-round picks that I trust. Now, Jonathan Taylor, the only problem is he's got no quarterback. He's got no defense. He's got no offensive line. Will Fry just went over to Minnesota. They just lost their center. So it's not the best offensive line, and he's still going really early. That's why he's number 5 on this list. Now, I love Jonathan Taylor. As a Texans fan, probably stupid to say, but Jonathan Taylor, he's a good running back. And it's evident that they love him as in the Colts facility. They're going to give him a lot of touches. They gave him a lot of touches last year. They're going to give him some more this year. But that's the only concern for me is he's going to get a lot of touches, and it's not going to be in meaningful games. So he's going to be the 3-down workhorse running back. Another reason Jonathan Taylor's on here, their second running back is Tyler Goodson. Tyler Goodson is not going to compete with Jonathan Taylor for the starting job. I'm expecting Taylor to be out there for 90% of snaps and be maybe a receiving back as well. So with that being said, that's why I like Taylor, because of the volume, because of how long he's going to be on the field. And yes, that's more subject to injury. However, I'll take my chances with Taylor. I think 5 is the right spot because of increased carries, injury risk, and unknown situation with how terrible the Colts are. So again, could be higher, but I like the situation he's in, just not necessarily the role they're going to use him for because the team is not very good. Number 4. Actually, let's touch on the stats really quick. Because last year, 14 games, 1,400 yards, 300 plus carries, 4.5 yards a carry. If he's healthy for the whole season, he can be a very good player. Again, it's just the health. You don't know what's going to happen. So Jonathan Taylor may not be a player I want to take because of if he gets hurt. Tyler Goodson, I don't trust him to do anything. And I also don't trust the Colts to be competitive. So those are the 2 big ones for me. Josh Jacobs, number 4. Jacobs, another guy who doesn't really have a lot of competition. Emmanuel Wilson, maybe. He got hurt last season. Kind of Jacobs' bulk of the carries were on the red zone. I don't know if this is going to be a 1-2 punch offense. If it is, I'm going to be a little bit nervous. But I think Jacobs is a viable starter. Going as the RB9. He finishes the RB6 last year. I think he's a pretty safe bet in terms of he's gonna get a lot of touchdowns, gonna get a lot of touches, and again, you don't really have a lot of wide receivers for the Packers. So Jacobs, number 4, mainly because I'm unsure of how this year is gonna go for Green Bay, but he's definitely gonna get a lot of touches inside the 5. This is a team that loves to run the ball. Josh Jacobs is a beast, but again, are there a lot of other options? No, that's why he's number 4 here. Number 3, Kyren Williams. This is a guy I love. Absolutely in love with Kyren Williams. He gets all the volume. He's the RB1. He's a 3-down workhorse back. The only problem is with how many times the Rams run the ball, and this is with every running back, but specifically with how the system is ran, they run running backs into the ground. I know it's in the name, running back. They run them into the ground. They run, they run, they run, they run, they run. If you're going to draft Kyren Williams, you need Blake Corum because he had 2 good seasons. His kind of second year in the league, he broke out, and I loved Kyren that year, but he got hurt. There was a few games he was hurt, and he only played in 14 games. And if he's going to be out for a few weeks, you cannot lose that valuable starter. So why not get Blake Corum just to solidify the fact that you have 2 dominant starters? And how do I know Blake Corum's dominant? Because, well, just look at the preseason game. They used him like they were using Kyren, and he got 2 touchdowns. So it's not the fact that Corum's this crazy great talent, but it's also the fact that they're 2 similar play styles, they're 2 similar body types, and they're 2 guys that are going to play the same position that are pretty much the same scheme fit, pretty much. So, love Kyren Williams, but the fact that he had 300 plus carries, it just kind of makes my eyes huge, and I got this weird feeling, knock on this wood, but I have a weird feeling. I'm just not even going to say it because it's just, you don't want to assume, but with somebody who gets so much volume, with somebody who has a great season, it's unlikely that they have the next season. Talked about this with the Saquon Barkley video. I'm not saying you're going to get hurt. An injury can happen to anyone. But when you're looking at what's going to happen with the situation, sometimes you just get a weird feeling. I'm not a fortune teller, but if you're going to draft Kyren Williams, I might get Blake Corum. Because I did the same thing with Nick Chubb the year he got hurt. Nick Chubb had all the right reasons to be an RB1. But I was a little bit skeptical because he had the best season of his career. So this is either going to be a Kyren Williams RB1 season, or he's going to get hurt mid-season and Blake Corum's going to take over. So I don't mind taking Williams, but you have to get Corum. Have to. Number 2, Caleb Johnson. A name that you're probably confused with. Like a rookie? Number 2? Really? Yes, really. Did you guys see how many times the Steelers ran the ball with Najee Harris last year? He had 300 carries for about 1,000 yards, 4 yards a carry, maybe less than that. So if Caleb Johnson, a fresh legs from Iowa, can do anything of what Najee Harris did in his rookie season, we're in for a rude awakening. Caleb Johnson and DK Metcalf, 2 players I love a lot. DK may not be that great now that I think about it because Arthur Smith's system is, hey, let's give it to the running back 100 times, even if it's 4th and 5 from shotgun. Let's hand it off. But Caleb Johnson just seems like a Steelers running back. He's a bell cow. He's somebody who may not play on 3rd down. That's kind of Jalen Warren's job. But Caleb Johnson's going to get 1st down work, 2nd down work, and pretty much is going to be Derrick Henry for this offense. He's going to get about 15 carries a game, probably about 60, 70 yards, and a touchdown. He's going to be good for 10 to 15 points. And if you're good with that for an RB1 or an RB2, Caleb Johnson's going to be consistent week in, week out. I think he's going to have about 1,000 touchdowns, 1,000 yards, and about 10 to 12 touchdowns. I love him a lot. I think he's going to be really good this year, but Jalen Warren might steal some 3rd down work. Time for number 1, the guy you've all loved and been waiting for. I cannot stop talking about this rookie. If anybody puts in a comment about the fact that he had -3 yards in the first preseason game, I'm going to freak out because that was bogus. He had 1 good run for 3 yards, and he was wrapped behind the line of scrimmage, even made a guy miss. But the fact of the matter is the Raiders' offensive line is not very good. That's the only problem. But I don't think that's going to be a problem because in an offense, I'll use Saquon Barkley as an example. The Giants' offensive line was terrible for years. But if you are a superstar talent, if the good things coming out of training camp are true about Ashton Jeanty, which I believe in, the talent is going to outweigh the bad situation. The volume that he is supposed to get as a running back 1, as a guy who's going to play 3 downs, that's the type of season out of a running back that I want to have. I know the height's crazy. His stance is now different. He used to stand up like Michael Watt Myers. Now he's actually in a running back stance. But Ashton Jeanty in a Pete Carroll system, he's going to get a lot of carries. He's going to get a lot of touches. I'd say 1,100 yards and about 5 to 10 touchdowns at least. 10 touchdowns, I would say, leaning to. And you ask yourself, hey, Mike, is that necessarily a running back 1 season that you want to take a running back in the first round? Probably not. But I am so in love with Ashton Jeanty. It's either him or McCaffrey for my first round pick if I'm taking a running back. And the more that I think about it, I want to take McCaffrey, but think about it this way. If Genti has 1,100 yards, 10 touchdowns, but still has receiving work on top of that, think about it. That could be legendary. That could be a season for like an Austin Eckler 2021 season where he was the RB1. And he had 50, 60, 70 catches. If Genti's going to catch the ball 50, 60 times, I definitely want him on my team. The receiving value is what's going to be make or break for Genti this season. So those are your top 5 must-draft running backs that I personally love for this season. All right, time for our last 2 topics of the day. We're going to go through our receivers for fantasy, and then because it's still August, you got about a month until the season, 3 weeks to be exact. We're going to talk about some future bets, what to look out for, division winners, wins, stuff like that. But let's stop talking about it and let's talk about it specifically. Number 5 wide receiver to look out for, DJ Moore. It's a weird name because everybody thought he was going to be amazing with Caleb Williams last year, and I told you to stay away from him. But I didn't like DJ Moore last year because it was a new system, new quarterback, and it just didn't make sense to me. Now, it's a better season. When DJ Moore had Justin Fields in 2023, 2 years ago when Fields was on the team, he looked pretty good. But now it is a first-year offense, so it is a little bit questionable. But you look at who's coaching the team. Ben Johnson, DJ Moore could be the Amon-Ra St. Brown of the Chicago Bears. Serious. I think he's going to be your slot guy, not slot guy, but your chunk play guy, where he's going to be your third down option. He's going to be the number 1 target in the offense. And Rome Odunze is going to be more like your Jameson Williams, and then, maybe that's Luther Burden. I haven't made up my mind yet, but the point is with this Bears offense, if everything goes right for DJ Moore, he should be the number 1 offense in this. He should be the number 1 guy in this offense with Caleb Williams. And if the Bears take any step forward of the progress that they had from last year, it all starts with passing the ball. If Caleb Williams can figure it out with Ben Johnson, DJ Moore's the guy to look out for. I don't care about Luther Burden. I don't care about Rome Odunze. He is the number 1 guy, and I think he can have a top 10 season. And he's going right now as the wide receiver 20, but I put him at number 5 because, yes, it is a little bit risky. We are taking a risk on a wide receiver who we are unsure of if the situation is going to succeed, but that's all about why you play fantasy football, for the risks of taking those high upside players. But he could bust this year. We could see the Bears go, 1-2 win season, and Ben Johnson has the worst head coaching and he's fired like Josh McDaniels did with the Raiders. But I highly doubt that. I think DJ Moore is a great player, and last year they were just kind of getting a little bit more chemistry. Fields and DJ Moore looked really good. But Caleb Williams, DJ Moore, new rookie quarterback, I think he learns a lot more this year, and they're going to be a little bit more in sync. So I like DJ Moore at 5. Number 4 is a weird one, but it's Garrett Wilson, and I thought Garrett Wilson was going to have a great year last year, but the problem is they brought in Devontae Adams. And for what it looked like on the first drive, Fields was not throwing to Garrett Wilson. I don't know if he's just focused on keeping his job or playing good offense, but this should be a better offense this year. And Garrett Wilson is his college teammate. He's the number 1 hookup. He should be the guy for Justin Fields. So I'm expecting this to be his breakout year. We know Garrett Wilson can play with bad quarterback play. I'm not even going to consider Fields in the conversation of Zach Wilson and the terrible years he's had to play for New York. But Rodgers last year, he helped them out, and he was definitely frustrated with some of those times because they brought in Devontae Adams. But it just didn't work out. Garrett Wilson is now the wide receiver 1. He's in a prime position to succeed. And honestly, I do like where his value is. He's kind of going as the wide receiver 24. Excuse me, hang on, I got my numbers wrong. He's going as the wide receiver 13, which is not terrible value, but second, third round, I would take a shot on Garrett Wilson. It's just, this is why he's number 4, because the situation is so new and so unknown that if you want to take a shot on him, there are questions as to, hey, what is that offense going to look like? Hey, it's a new quarterback. So those are 2 players with 2 new quarterbacks that I'm kind of like, I don't know, because the value is a little bit sketchy. But the upside is there, and I do love them as wide receivers. These next 3 guys, I love them. Every single bit of it. Give me all the Marvin Harrisons. Wide receiver 30 last year, a guy who was supposed to be the buzz of the NFL, the name to look out for, the next best thing. He disappointed, and now he's dropped off to the wide receiver 18. And I think that's a perfect spot for him. Kyler Murray, this is make or break for him. He's got to prove himself. And Kyler Murray could have a bad season, and Marv could still be a top 10 wide receiver. And what we're looking for here is outperforming ADP, and that's a good spot for him. Wide receiver 18. I think I could get him third, fourth, maybe fourth, fifth round. And he could be a solid wide receiver 1 or 2 if you depending on what your team looks like. And I really do think Marv's going to be the number 1 guy. There really is not many other options. For some reason, Murray was looking at Greg Dortch, and for some reason, he likes to find those gadget tool wide receivers who make no sense to be actual fantasy relevant, like Andy Isabella or Greg Dortch last year. Give Marvin Harrison the ball, and he looked good over the middle of the field, but give him a couple routes to go for. Love Marv. Give him an opportunity. He's ready for it. He put on some weight. Love Marvin Harrison. Definitely number 3 because there are still some flaws. 18 is a little bit high, but it's not as high as he was going last year. He was going first round last year, so a little bit better value this year. Back it up a little bit to second, third, fourth round range. So ADP 28, probably third round. But yeah, that's Marvin. Number 2, it's a rookie. Might think, hey, Mike, didn't you just say 2 other guys in DJ Moore and Garrett Wilson who have first-year quarterbacks? Yes. But this guy's an unbelievable talent. He's proven himself, and Bryce Young's a good quarterback now. I mean, I really do believe in Bryce Young, but you saw the connection in preseason. Young to McMillan, it was down the sideline, and he looked just like he did in college. Everyone was concerned because he's out of Arizona. He never really played with any talent. I don't care. If you can make Arizona look like a good football team and get 100 yards and a touchdown a game, I actually had the opportunity to watch him live at UCF down on the field, and man, was he special. He can run good routes. He can create space, and even if he doesn't create space, he's got such a long frame that he can catch it over anyone and just moss you. 6'4", that height, it just reminds me of Cortland Sutton with Bo Nix last year. That's what this is going to be. This offense is going to look special, but I think Ted McMillan's going to be a Cortland Sutton of last year. And if you look at this, he's going as the wide receiver 24. 24. I think that's a good spot for him. I don't think there's 24 receivers that are going to be better than him. I think he's going to be around the top 10 range. I think that's kind of where Sutton was last year. He was around the top 10, top 15 range. So I like some Ted McMillan. I think he's going to be the number 1 option. But you do have to remember there's other players that are going to catch the ball. So I don't know if 24 is the best spot, but I do think he's a great player and he has the potential to be very good. Again, these are just 5 must-draft wide receivers that I love. I don't know if the value is that great because there is Leggett there. There is other players there and Adam Thielen and other guys. So a little bit scary, but I think Young should gravitate to a number 1 target because you look at the fact that he's kind of never really had a number 1 guy. So McMillan is that guy that they looked to go get. And that's it. As for number 1, my favorite, but I've kind of been talking myself out of this one recently, but it's the fact that the Steelers don't necessarily throw the ball a lot. So that's kind of where I was like, do they do well? George Pickens made a name for himself last year. Maybe DK Metcalf can do that. And the reason I'm convincing myself on this is because Aaron Rodgers loves to throw to one player and one player only. It was Davante Adams for the longest time. On the Jets, it was Garrett Wilson until Davante Adams came over. But realistically, this is going to be an offense where he is going to pepper one target. It may not be Davante Adams, but DK Metcalf is in for a season. And it would have been awesome to see DK and Pickens, but I like it without Pickens because there's no number 2 there. So making the fact that DK is fantasy relevant, he's coming off a very bad season, which makes people not want to draft him even more. So that's just where I'm like, you know what? DK's going to have a good season. I think he's going to be Rodgers' number 1 go-to guy. And realistically, there's no competition in that wide receiving room. Scotty Miller, Robert Woods, Calvin Austin. The only thing that could be a problem is maybe he throws to the tight end a little bit more. But even then, I still think DK's in for a 12 to 1400 yard season. And this Steelers team, if it runs smoothly, if the offense goes as planned, they can easily be a playoff team. If Rodgers doesn't have to do too much, if all he has to do is drop back, hit his guy in stride, this could be a year where DK, who's sitting as the wide receiver 21, he can fly out from 21 to 8. Like that. And every year, there's always a wide receiver that goes from number 30 to number freaking 6, 7. Like, it's so weird, but that's the league-winning guy. And I feel like those 5 guys, one's a rookie, one's a second-year guy who had a slump, one's a guy who hasn't got a good quarterback situation. All those guys are easily in the potential to be league winners. Unfortunately, it'll only be 1 or 2 of them that are even close to top 5. But those are the guys that you look at. For me, I think it's going to be McMillan that kind of takes that shot up. Marvin Harrison to 24 to 15. Harrison 18 to 10. I think DK's that guy that can get into the top 10 and be that guy that can be a league winner. And finally, the last segment of the day, NFL future bets. I feel like they have to be now or never. First one you got to start with. The Washington Commanders to win the NFC East. First of all, it's great odds. Plus 220 on a quarterback who just went to the NFC Championship. I know what everyone's worried about. Oh, what if he has a CJ Stroud season? A sophomore slump is bound to be incoming. Well, that's not necessarily true because the amount of quarterbacks that have sophomore slumps, it doesn't happen. They actually go to Super Bowls. So Brock Purdy went to a Super Bowl. Joe Burrow, all those guys played awesome. The other reason, there has not been a back-to-back NFC East winner since 2003 and 4 when the Eagles went back-to-back. Now, the Eagles may very well go back-to-back, but it's going to come down to the wire. So I think the Commanders can easily pull it out. The Eagles have a very tough schedule this year. And again, this is the team that I'm looking at, the team to beat. The Commanders got better this year. They got Von Miller. They brought in Deebo Samuel. They brought in guys. This is a Super Bowl winning team. I 100% believe in it. And the fact that there has not been a back-to-back NFC East winner since 2003, this is the thing. This is going to be a competitive division. I really do believe it. Cowboys, Eagles, and Commanders are all going to be really close. But in terms of looking at who's going to win the Super Bowl, I think it's going to be these 2 teams right here. They have potential. The Texans and the Commanders. This is 2 teams that are very close. And talking about other teams that are going to win their division, I like the Texans. I think 2 sneaky ones could be the Bengals and could be the Bears. Again, 2 for value plays. Bears are like plus 400. Bengals are like plus 275. Similar to the Commanders. But the Texans win total just seems too low to me. Everyone that I've seen make videos about this are like, oh, the Texans aren't going to win 10 games because they're looking at last year and they're looking at, oh, they didn't look too good last year. You know why the Texans didn't look good last year? Because guess what? Bobby Slowick was running bad play calling. The injuries, you had Nico Collins go down. Stephon Diggs is out for the year. Tank Dell had that crazy injury. This team is a lot more improved. Nick Caley, new offense coordinator. Texans look good. Yes, it may be a tough schedule, but they should win at least 9 games. So if you feel a little bit nervous about the 9.5, go ahead and knock it down. It's probably like minus 170 on DraftKings. Love the Texans to win at least 9 games, especially because they're in a winnable division, a winnable conference. So I love the Texans this year. There's no reason they should not be fighting for a division. They should definitely be fighting for the division lead, if not the wild card spot at the very least. My only fear is that the Texans might have to fight with Jacksonville for this division at like 10, 11 wins. But I still think 11, I have them winning 12 games. But again, love the Texans potentially to win the AFC South plus 115. I would just do over 9.5. But again, a team that I think could win the Super Bowl plus 2,500 odds. I like them to win the Super Bowl. Commanders, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but 2 teams that are potentially under the radar that could go far. As far as the going far, the Jaguars. Over 7.5 wins. It's interesting, but Liam Cohen, a new head coach, I would like to lean to the over there. 55% of confidence in the over 7.5. 7.5 seems a little low. 6.5 if you want to knock it down, be a little cheaper. Sure, it's probably going to be minus 230. But the Jaguars should win at least 8 games. I think they're going to be a very good team, middle of the pack. They're going to be very good coached, very highly underrated, I would say, and the defense is pretty good as well. It's really it all comes down to the offense. So I think 7.5. I like that bet. Now let's get into some players, because honestly, you're gonna hear a lot of similar names that you've heard throughout this podcast. But Matthew Golden, only at 725 yards. That's a little low. Just saying. This is a guy who's gonna get wide receiver 1 volume. I'm not saying he's gonna get 1,000 yards, but all he needs to get is 750. That's a little low for me. I was looking at Keon Coleman, Ladd McConkey. Ladd McConkey's yards were at similar right here, because he's a rookie, because you don't know what to expect. He's at least getting 800 yards. I'm telling you that right now. Listen, Matthew Golden is a star in the making. This kid can play, and I'm telling you, this is going to be Jordan Love's number 1 target. If you don't want to draft him in fantasy, fine. But if you look at that number, 700.5, oh my gosh, it's criminal. Number 2, I guess. This is 7 out of 11 on my slideshow. So a couple more players. Ashton Jeanty. I don't know how to feel about him. I think he's going to get 1,000 yards. Does he get 1,100? It's a little bit sketchy. I don't know. I'd say over 7.5 touchdowns, though. That's a pretty safe bet that I'm like, you know what? Ashton Jeanty is a workhorse. He's a beast. I don't know how many times the Raiders are going to run it on the goal line, but if they're down there, they're going to give it to that guy. So I love Ashton Jeanty. I think when you look at what he's made of, he's 100% grit, 100% the strength that you need. So big on Ashton Jeanty. And maybe not the yards, but the touchdowns are there in my eyes. All right. Next one, DK Metcalf. We talked about him a little earlier, but another guy, I feel like his line is a little bit low. I feel like it should be at 1,500. DK's a guy who's the only receiver on that team. And you look at George Pickens last year, he did about the similar aspect, 950 yards. George Pickens in 14 games, 900 yards, and 5 touchdowns. So actually only had 3, but the season before in 2023 he had 1,100 yards. That's kind of what I'm expecting out of DK Metcalf, around 60-70 catches, 1,100 yards. This is one of the ones that I'm on the riskier side with, but I love the Matthew Golden one. I like the Ashton Jeanty one. This one seems pretty good too, but this one's even better. Caleb Johnson, another rookie. It opened at 900. If you look at DraftKings odds, 775. This is a guy who's going to take over Najee Harris's position. And Najee, as bad as a runner that he was last year, he's still at 1,000 yards. He still had 1,000 yards. That's incredible. Najee Harris, 3.5 yards a carry. Caleb Johnson is a beast. Maybe not, I don't even know. He might even hit the touchdowns too, but looking at it, rushing yards, I like that a lot. And then CJ Stroud. I personally think he's in the running for the MVP category. Plus 10,000 odds? It's a good boost right there, honestly. For the low value that it is, I would consider it. But I'm looking at the passing yards. It's a little low for me. He passed for 3,800 last year. He can easily do that again this year. It's at 3,650. I don't know why it's going down. Everyone's sleeping on the Texans. I like Stroud yards. I like Nico Collins yards. Stroud's going to throw for 4,000. I have no doubt in my mind. I really don't even have to spend too much longer on this. I've talked about Stroud. He's underrated. He's got a new offensive line. It's not the best, but he's got new weapons. That was the problem last year. It wasn't the offensive line. It was. But it was also the fact that he was missing wide receivers. He was missing good play calling. He didn't feel comfortable in that system. Bobby Slowick had these long developing plays, did not know how to run situational football, and CJ Stroud now has the free will to call and check his own plays at the line of scrimmage because they have that confidence in him with Nick Caley. So that's awesome. Last one, a little bit different because you look at the fact that I did talk about a lot of players that I talked about in fantasy. So somebody different, Deebo Samuel. I think he's really going to adapt into the number 2 role very well. 700 is a little bit risky, but if we're going to see anything about Terry McLaurin holding out, 700 yards should be a breeze for Deebo. But I look at 700 yards and it's really nothing crazy. Yes, for a wide receiver too, it's a little risky. However, when you're looking at new and improved guys to get the ball, this is a wide receiver core. This is an offense rather, that I think is going to look like 2 1,000-yard seasons. This is going to look like one of the best wide receiving cores in the NFL. You look at A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, 2 1,000-yard guys. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle back in the day. This is the next best offense. Maybe your Mike Evans and your Chris Godwin. The 2 1,000-yard receivers that you never see anymore, watch out. The Commanders' offense, Debo, is going to be a screen pass guy. He's going to be your deep threat guy. So he might not have a lot of catches, but he's going to have a lot of yards. And 700, it just seems a little low to me. So just to recap, love the Commanders to win the division. Love the Texans win total. Love the Texans win total. The Jaguars win total. And then a couple players. Golden is a beast. Genty is a beast. DK is a little iffy, so I can understand if you're out on that one. Caleb, I think it's easy. 750, no doubt about it. And then CJ Stroud. I think it's a very safe one. So 4, 5, 6 plays for you. Let me know what you think. Let me know if I'm missing anybody. Tried to pull out the best information that I could on each player in terms of the division. I literally did every record prediction for every team. So I'm just trying to give you guys the best ultimate strategy in terms of what you're looking at. And, you do your research in terms of who you're drafting in fantasy and who you're going to go out and get for the future betting as well. But thank you guys so much for watching. This has been a little bit of quieter episode because guess what? It's like 10:30 at night. So apologies for my low voice in an apartment complex. Kind of don't want to wake anybody up. But sweating a little bit. Kind of an hour and a half kind of podcast on and off the air. But appreciate everyone hanging out. Let me know if I should do this again. Probably not that late so I don't wake anyone up. But I'm going to end this before I get a noise complaint. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Hit that sub button if you're new. Sorry I'm whispering, but cheers. Comments, as always. Appreciate all the love. This has been Mike Zanetti. This is the Big Z Breakdown, and we'll see you next week for probably a recap of some preseason and some fantasy, but I can't wait for the season. Let me know how stoked you are, but I got to go before I get evicted. I'll see ya.